ChatGPT is considered a generative artificial intelligence if we're using a word or a terminology called generative. So these are algorithms that can be used no, to generate content. No? So ano ba yung mga type of content na yan? So it could be content such as audio, it could be programming codes, it could be images, no? It could also be text, it could be simulations and videos, no? And if we're talking about ChatGPT, so si ChatGPT naman, it generates conversational text, no? So if you're actually talking to a ChatGPT system, if you have been provided access, so it's like very similar like a talking chatbot, no? That it provides you with content, no? And acts as if you're talking to someone. No? In this case, if you're talking to a computer. And even though that ChatGPT is new, the technology behind it is actually took years to be able to come to this point that is actually publicly widely used. No? And what makes GPT unique is they use a lot of data and they use a lot of like parameters. So imagine around 800 gig of files just to train a machine to understand how to speak, no? And how a language is actually being understood. So a lot of those data are being captured publicly, no? And they have reused, no? Um, the existing language models that they have developed and built ChatGPT on top of it to make it conversational. I think in the process of like using ChatGPT, it's an aid, no? It's not means to an end because you need to make sure that what it produces is something that is also factual. Since again, the data that's been collected and been used to train this model is up until 2021. And if you're applying real-time data, no, that is relevant now, so there's a miss in terms of like 2021 with 2023, no? Especially in a fast-paced environment like investment, right? So there will be a mismatch. But if you're going to ask like standard common information, it might hit no, the right answer into it. But if you ask questions that are there's a time factor, no? That might impose challenges because again, it also like takes time to build these models. I was talking like 800 gig, like 500 gig of like data. So, and it would definitely like, take a lot of huge computing power to be able to rebuild again these models, no? To consider new data sets to be learned. No? So, one of the probably kind of limitations that of like ChatGPT is that it cannot immediately like relearn what's happening right now, no? Because it needs to capture a lot of like data. I think it's a matter of also rethinking how education should be able to work with artificial intelligence. And we know that the academe in itself is like very traditional in terms of like how technology is being used. And we know that artificial intelligence these days is becoming more public and going into the masses. And now it's in the reach of like students who can actually capitalize on using this technology to be able to aid them, no, to create some of the contents that they might be expecting of them of school, no. And I think one of the best way to be able to consider is to rethink of how do you now improve teaching? How do you improve now setting up policies, you know, in terms of working with instead of like removing ChatGPT in the picture totally, right? I've seen some professors in the States that they have already stated AI policies, you know, on their actual syllabus, like mentioning about okay, you need to mention why did you use ChatGPT in your project or in your paper, because again, it needs to also have a critical thinking in order for you to use ChatGPT. So if you just provided a minimum effort using it, therefore the result that it would also provide you is something that is not probably be useful. And as mentioned, you don't trust anything it says, right? So it needs an extra effort to be able to do fact checking. Also, if you don't do a number of like fact checking, then if the content that you're sharing to your teacher is like wrong, it would have an impact also on your output. Is it unique? It depends on how you configure it, no? Because again, you can determine like what sources could actually be. You can limit the number of like sources. You can change the sources it could actually get. It might be creating different ways to summarize those type of content, which makes it unique. We're seeing more of augmentation of like work rather than replacing. So because again, as what I mentioned, no, there are some contents that needs to be fact checked, no, because again, it is coming from a source that is a mixture of like factual, opinionated content, or probably other contents that are created, no, that we don't know if it's true or not. So it has an impact on marketing and sales. It has an impact also on IT. Because again, you probably have heard, no, some of the technology can actually do coding itself, right? In operations, it has an impact too. You can ask them to like list a possible task or like a checklist. But again, it needs to still have a human in the loop in the process all the time.